Hi, BookTube. Yes, I'm batch filming. Um, you'll notice all the videos I put out have had the same background and the same shirt. Actually, let me show you my shirt. I love my shirt. It says "You Matter" and it's a heart with the comma. Not the comma. Semicolon. That's what it's called. Anyways, a little explanation. I'm gonna be moving twice. Probably by the end of the year. And to another province. So I don't know when I'll be able to film with everything that is gonna be happening. I don't know when I'm gonna have the typical booktube background. There's also a lot of cat hair on my shirt. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. Let's just get to the point of the video, which is my September wrap up. Yeah, I'm gonna start with the DNF. I think I counted it's 11 and a half books because I'm counting that half because I read a whole lot of this book before I decided it wasn't going to be what I wanted. And that is Endymion by Dan Simmons. I think there's two M's. Anyways, and it is book 3 in the Hyperion cycle. Quadrology? Anyways. Yeah, and it's nothing like the first two. Hyperion, Fall of Hyperion, some of the best books I've ever read. The level of plot and characterization and philosophy and everything going on in those books is mind-blowingly good. Read those books. But stop after Fall of Hyperion. Endymion takes place 300 and some odd years later and is, I learned this term recently, a cat and mouse chase book. And it's my least favorite trope in any book, which is where someone runs away and then they get caught. And then they run away again. And then they get caught again. And then they run away again. And it's just like repetitive. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. And that was happening in Endymion. I can't even really tell you what it's about besides that, because it will spoil the first 3 books. But just be aware that you can end with Fall of Hyperion and everything that you need to know will be concluded. Yeah. Also, I mentioned that I was going to read the Divine Comedy. I got a ways into Inferno, and it was basically just Dante kind of shading people in Italian history and his recent history by depicting them in hell. And my brother just came home, so give me a second to let him know that I'm filming. Okay, yeah. Angle and things probably changed because I had to get up. Yeah, it was just Dante, like, having his recent people in recent Italian history in hell and kind of like shading them for being there. And he didn't always name the people, and the people were like, it'd be like a footnote and be like, we don't know who this is, but it's probably someone real, and I'm just like, I don't know who these people are, and that's what like the majority of it was. So yeah, I didn't finish that one. I figured just reading a description of the different levels of hell is probably all I wanted, because those were just like a stanza, and the rest of it was like him talking to people in hell that I didn't know and talking about things that I didn't know about, and that had to be described by footnotes. That, again, if you don't know who these people are, it doesn't really matter. So if you're interested in Italian history, if you know a lot about Italian history, maybe read the Divine Comedy. Otherwise, I say it's okay to skip, which may be blasphemy coming from, like book lovers and an English major and all that stuff. But yeah, you can skip the Divine Comedy. It was easy to read otherwise, like easy to understand what was going on, but the characters, I guess. Yeah. Now on to what I've actually finished in September. The Age of Shiva by Manil Suri. Oh, sorry. The Age of Shiva by Manil Suri. This is book 2 in his Hindu Gods series trilogy thing. I don't know what it's actually called. Yeah, but each book is inspired by Hindu mythology and a specific god. So the first book was really good, and that was called The Death of Vishnu. And we follow a character named Vishnu, who's a homeless man. He lives on the landing of a staircase in an apartment building, and he's dying. And it's about him dying, the people around him realizing that he's dying, and like his life story at the same time. And like almost very obviously, um how the different representations of Vishnu um played a story in his life. And it was really super well written and enjoyable. The Age of Shiva, uh, it wasn't as good. um, yeah, I don't. I think it might have been more obvious if I knew more about Hindu mythology myself. But he did try obviously to tell you about Shiva and how it connected to the story. But it was stretched at times. So we follow, just to clarify, um, Shiva, even though it ends in an A, and that usually that in like English indicates something feminine, Shiva is a mostly masculine Hindu god. I'm not gonna get into the whole mythology there, but yeah, he's mostly masculine. But we have a female character, and um, her main characteristic and role in life for her is that she doesn't want to bow down to other people's trying to manipulate her life, but she ends up being like the consequences of that fall into another thing that she's trying to avoid, if that makes sense. So basically what it is she marries this man who's very him and his family are very traditional, very religious, um, and her father is very anti-religion. I'll just say like that's very obvious. So like she bounces between the two of them, but with and her whole life that she says is she wants to not have people make decisions for her, but her decisions are either very traditional or not traditional. Like there's no, she doesn't come to any compromise, and I feel like still her life is influenced by other people. It's yeah, and it's about her and mostly her son, a bit of her husband, but mostly the relationship between her and her son. Um, yeah, and there's incest and rape. Just yeah, some very. It opens with a very interesting description of things. You should. I can't spoil it because like even like finding out like the first sentence to the next sentence, it's like, oh, okay, that's changes your mind how you look at things. But yeah, it was uncomfortable. That's the word, uncomfortable, but without point. If that makes sense, I don't know. I'm glad I read it, but it wasn't always enjoyable. That's all I did. It's already 8 minutes and we've only talked about like the first 3 books. Okay, sorry. All Systems Red, Martha Wells, Murderbot, booktube love thing. I reread it. I loved it. It's only 3 to 4 hours long. Read it. That's all I'm gonna say. Letter Perfect by David Sachs. This is the history of the alphabet and the English alphabet mostly, but in talking about the history of the English alphabet, you have to go back to like the earliest alphabets, and it goes letter by letter, the chapters and how they evolved, and you know their place in modern society, how they evolved, and how they're said. I found myself a lot of time, you know, vocalizing the sound letters to see like he's talking about you start at the tip of your thing and you close your nose off, and I'm just like, nah. I'm like, oh my god, like making all these like just sounds while I'm reading it. It felt a little repetitive after a while because they have a lot of the same history. You know, they start out as a Semitic alphabet, relating to the Egyptian kind of alphabet, and then eventually, you know, the Greek, and then the Etruscan, and then Latin, and then like English, and then the French influence it, and that happens to every letter. So it felt a little repetitive at that point, but it was still interesting learning about how our letters came to be, and the order that they're in is not because they rhyme and fit into that song. Yeah, it's really cool. Like for example, J comes after I because there used to be no letter J. I used to be J. Um, And if you look at like the German alphabet, where J is called yacht, um, and it's pronounced as a Y instead of a J, like a J sound in English, um, because it means little I, and like other things like that. Like it's really cool. Yeah, it was really interesting to learn about those. Um, and I read Sandinos Daughters by Margaret Randall, and it's not really by Margaret Randall. Um, this is subtitled Women's Testimonies in Revolutionary Nicaragua, I believe. And it's about the almost unprecedented rise of female um, guerrillas, um, mostly guerrillas, fighting in the Nicaraguan Revolution. Sandino is an important revolutionary figure in Nicaragua, um, and that's their roles as you know women, as soldiers, as mothers, as post-revolutionary politicians and lawyers and things. It was really cool. I'm getting to read that because Nicaragua holds a special place in my heart. So even though like Margaret Randall's name is on the title, it's not really by her. It's just her, her writing down what these Nicaraguan women told her about their experience, like verbatim. Like it's just that. Yeah. I really enjoyed that. It kind of ended abruptly though. I wish there was some kind of like fuller analysis of the roles of women. Um, yeah, but that's my only complaint. Um, Again, with regards to women and feminism, I read an amazing book, a life-changing book. Not maybe as life-changing as it would be for other people. I'm sorry, I'm in a rocking chair. Maybe not as life-changing for other people who believe in complementarianism and female submission in the Christian church, but still changed my mind about the letters of Paul, which I never thought would happen. Let me explain. This book is called The Making of Biblical Womanhood by Beth Allison Barr. And there's this problem in some Christian churches, particularly as she talks about it in the Baptist churches, particularly in the South, about this thing called complementarianism, which is basically that there's a hierarchy in gender where men are over women and women have to submit to the leadership of men. It's a lot more complicated than that, but she goes through talking about her personal experience with this, and also being a scholar of medieval women, and in regards particularly to their relationship with Christianity and the Bible. And she deconstructs this whole notion, and like right from a lot of this comes from the letters of Paul, and she explains how basically they're being misunderstood, misinterpreted. How the different translations and the different biases that are put into the translations of different Bibles affect this, and how throughout history this hasn't been true, and just it's amazing. If you have any interest in Christianity, definitely definitely check this out. It was amazing. I have to get a physical copy whenever I move, and I can know my address and where to order it to. I'm definitely getting a physical copy of The Making of Biblical Womanhood. Like, ugh, amazing book. I'm sorry to keep yawning. Tired. Yeah. I also read 2 books in the Wayward Children series. I was meant to read more, but I didn't, for whatever reason. I discovered the Making Biblical Womanhood audiobook. I went from there. So that was Every Heart or Joy, which was a reread for me. These are by Shannon McGuire. And then I read the next one, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. And these are about, the first one's about kids who have gone into like fairy tale worlds, and for some reason or whatever end up back in the mundane world, and dealing with that, finding the place where you belong and then being kicked out for whatever reason. And the second book was really good. It goes specifically into the story of Jack and Jill, who are twins. and their adventure into their world, which is not your typical fairy tale. There's vampires and mad scientists and werewolves and, you know, the reality of living in like a medieval type fantasy world. Yeah, that was really good. And also, I just wanted to murder their parents. I don't really want to murder. Well, I do want to murder a lot of people theoretically. I wouldn't actually murder people. I don't actually want to murder people, but like fictional people, you kind of hope bad things happen to them because they're fictional. Anyways, yeah, I really didn't like the parents, but I think that was meant. They're meant to be not liked at all. And then I also read My Father's Ghost is Climbing in the Rain by Patricio Prawn, which was a really interesting book. It's semi-autobiographical about a man whose father ends up hurt, and he ends up going back home to Argentina and discovering these articles about this murdered man. But it also links to the disappearances that happened in Argentina politically. My cat is right here, so sorry if he bumps the phone. Yeah, it was good. It was confusing because I was like, is this real? Because it seemed real, but when you get to the end, he kind of explains that some of it's real, some of it's made up, but I wanted to approach it this way. So it was interesting. Yeah, there's different like articles, and he even describes a video at one point and pictures and stuff like that. So it was cool to read. And very short too, very quick to read. I also read The World in Flames by Gerald Walker. I think this is subtitled Black Boyhood in a White Supremacist Cult. So his parents joined a cult that was very much about white supremacy and no intermingling of the races. And it's the Armstrong Church, which I'd never heard of this cult, and I'm fascinated with cults and thought I had learned about every cult there was to learn about in modern history, but I hadn't heard about this one. Reggie, please. I'm just gonna pick up the cat here. Come here, let go. And we've crashed. As I said, I'm not editing, so sorry about that. I thought it would be better than having this little guy constantly shaking the camera. You're gonna help me finish up the wrap up. Yeah, so it's told from the perspective of a child. So there's not a lot of deep thought or analysis done by him in the book, but there is enough information given for you to do it yourself, if that makes sense. Yeah, he's not very happy about being held, but I don't care. I want to snuggle my kitty. Yeah, it was interesting learning about a new cult. There we go. That's better. And then I also read The Beetle by Richard Marsh, which is a classic horror. A bit early for Victober. I guess it would have fit perfectly in there. And it's about one man in particular being haunted by how can I put it? This thing that happened to him in Egypt a long time ago that involved human sacrifices, and he's being haunted by this thing. It's not necessarily human. Yeah, that's about all I can give you. I think it's best to go in and just kind of explore along with him. And there's one more book. Can you just stay still while we talk about one more book, Riggs? One more book. And then I'll let you go crazy. I have you resting on his cat tree, just because it was the most convenient place, and he wants to play, and it's shaking the camera. Okay, we're almost done. And then I read Dogged by Death by Laura Scott. This is the first book in a cozy mystery series following a veterinarian who doesn't listen. The cop keeps telling her, and I know like ACAB and all that stuff, like, yeah, I agree with it, but in the context of a fictional world, she didn't listen to the cop telling her, stop interfering in the murder investigation. You're not helping. And she really didn't help. She like, it's just like, girl, you're gonna get yourself either like killed by the murderer, or like put in jail for like what you're doing. Like, it's annoying. It was annoying, and I didn't enjoy it, but I wanted to find out who the murderer was, so I kept listening. Yeah, I won't be continuing with that series, but it's just, typical cozy mystery in a small town, following a veterinarian. Yeah, yeah. And if you don't behave, I'm gonna take you to the vet. Oh, it's a scary, scary cat. I don't think he's ever been to the vet. He's got his shots, but he's an indoor cat, and he's fixed. So we don't go. We don't have any reason to go because he's perfect. Perfect. Okay. Besides not like being held, but that's okay. You don't have to be held. I just have to hold you right now to stop you from knocking the camera. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I read in September. Let me know what you read in September. And if you've read any of these books, what you think. And I can't do my normal wave. Thank you for, let's get Reggie to wave. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna stop torturing him and you because I've been talking for 21 minutes and I think I'm done. Bye.